Welcome back everybody to another edition of UFTA Premium, and in this episode we're going to talk about risk versus reward, a favorite topic of mine. So what do I mean by that? Well, UFTA is essentially, it's a game of numbers, and if you happen to have math skills, this is kind of where they start to shine through, because the better handle you get on the numbers that are associated with each transaction in the game, then the more you familiarize yourself with those operations, the more of an advantage you're going to have, and it's more likely that you're going to find yourself in the winner's seat by the game's end. So what I'm just going to demonstrate is 3 different levels of risk versus reward. The first level is going to be the situation regarding marker tokens on field crops. Okay, so if you take a look here, we've got player A. Player A has a nice assortment of crops on their farm. They have some nice adversity cards, but they also have marker tokens protecting each of their items. And so always the risk, whenever you're placing marker tokens, that in itself begs the question of risk versus reward, right? There may be times in UFTA where not putting out protections may be your best option, but you always have to weigh the two sides of the scale, which is, if you want to put money values as marker tokens, money value in protections out, you can do that, but you also have to weigh that against the risk of losing them, and whether or not the assets that they're protecting are going to be worth your while, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Let's say I have squash. I planted squash, and I have 10 tokens of protection. Here's my squash. So I have squash, and I put 10 tokens of protection on there. Well, is that really worthwhile? Because if I come to harvest squash, it's in the 3 spot. If I do that, that's just going to result in, at best, a 6-point crop harvest, right? And so, paying out 10 tokens to receive 6 doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So those are the kind of scenarios you got to look out for. There's an additional layer of complexity to this question, though, because what's happening is maybe that squash is part of a 2-crop combo or a 3 or 4-crop combo, right? In which case, then the math has to be done differently. You've got to think about it from a different angle, because even if the squash is a lowly single crop value in the market, it is very possible that it'll be worth quite a bit more as long as you harvest in tandem or in triplicate or quadruple with everything else. And so that's just something that's situational and conditional in UFTA that you have to become acclimated to as a player. And as you improve your skills over time, you begin to understand these dynamics at play. So anyway, in this particular case, we've got good protection on our crops, but there's 2 cards you really have to watch out for in UFTA. Let's see if I can find them. Okay, so there's 2 cards in UFTA that you want to really be wary of. The first one, of course, we're pretty familiar with by now. This is really supposed to remove 3/4 of all of your items, including marker tokens, on top of your fields. So that's a significant penalty, the most significant in the game. But the second highest one is this one. Ouch. Yeah, plague. And what that does is it removes all your marker tokens, whatever protections you have out in the fields. So that's yet another wrinkle when it comes to risk versus reward. I put these 10 tokens out, but I can tell you anecdotally, I've had games where I put too much protection out. I got lazy, and what happened was I put 30 tokens out. And then I didn't realize it, but another player had this nasty card. And it was waiting for me, right? And so they played the card, and I lost, a significant amount of hunger tokens, thanks to this unforecasted play. So, anyway, it's something you have to really be cognizant of. You got to be super aware of what the odds are, in any particular case. Notice how, if we just take a brief time out here, you notice how the adversity cards won't give you the same odds. It's not like a normal card game because growers have the ability to purchase the adversity cards. It means cards are always going in and out of the deck. And so even if you're really advanced, let's say you're good at counting cards, I know I'm not, but if that's your particular talent, just bear in mind that in UVTA, it's not going to be that handy for you because the odds are going to be shifting all the time. So that's another point to bear in mind. Alright. So that's the first layer of risk and rewards that I wanted to talk about. The second one had to do with the adversity cards. Adversity cards are super cool. They have multi-purpose functions, right? Because you can trade them in with a 3-tiered reward system, or you can keep the cards and just let them accrue more marker tokens every time there's a growing season renewal. And then finally, they can be actually used against other growers. And so that seems to be the issue here. Here we have adversity cards, but they also have the 10 tokens of protection on them. Well, always when you're ready to play an adversity card, you have to consider whether or not there's tokens on top of it. In this case, there is. Because you're going to lose those tokens if you play the adversity card. So just to review, how do I alleviate that circumstance? Well, what I do is I take the tokens and I liquidate them and take 5 tokens off at a time. So that now I only have 5 tokens. But I have to wait I have to wait until my next turn in order to play a card. Because you can never play the card on the same turn that you liquidate them. So there's always a tension there between risk versus reward. The other factor you have to consider is just how much the card is, how damaging it is to your opponents. So if we look at this card, this one happens to be pretty nice, right? Situationally, it's a good idea to do it. It'd be a good idea to play it on this person because they have their poison ready to score a 2-crop combo. So in this case, let's say it was worth 10 tokens. I would look at this very carefully and say, what's worth losing 10 tokens over? Well, if they're going to score 40 or 50 points with a 2-crop combo, then I would say it's well worth it. But in this case, they don't happen to have a 2-crop combo, and so I'm left with the problem of figuring this out. So anyway, that's just an example of what can happen with the adversity cards in terms of risk versus reward. Now, the final aspect of risk versus reward that I want to discuss has to do with fender doodles. You know, just to review, placing fender doodles in the market is free. You don't have to pay anything. But you do have to pay for promotions, demotions, or movement in the market of fender doodles. So, you know, the same sort of logic, the same sort of analysis applies when you place the fender doodles. If you place the fender doodles on a crop that you're hoping to harvest, that's great, but you also have to bear in mind the fact that fender doodles have that unique property. They essentially belong to everyone. That's why it's free to place them. Because anyone can move it on their turn for 5 tokens and an action. So let's say I have my fender doodle here. I have it on kale. And then someone decides they want to move it. Well, if I know that they want to move it, I'm going to do something ahead of time. I'm going to promote it if I can. If I have an action left over on my turn, I take the 5 tokens, pay the 5 tokens into the cup, and I promote my fender doodle, the primordia fender doodle, into a hyphal, or an adult. And that way nobody can move it. The only way to move this is through double sabotage, and it has to happen over 2 turns. Only single sabotage happening twice in successive turns can demote an adult. So it's very difficult to do that. So that's why it's a good bet. You know, if you're really concerned about scoring your crops and you don't want them moved around in the market, then the best thing to do is maybe promote to an adult. But again, situational, conditional. It's up to you, and whether or not the circumstances warrant that kind of a move. Okay, so that takes care of all 3 aspects of risk versus reward. Again, I can only give you sort of broad advice because the beauty of UFTA is you must switch up what you're doing. You must be creative. You must really think hard and long, and you must analyze. You must think about the math a little bit, and you have to operate on all cylinders firing in order to achieve success in UFTA. So I think we're going to leave it there. That's quite a bit of strategy for you to digest. I know I have a lot to work on as well. So anyway, until next time, keep on playing UFTA. See you later, everybody.